Hey folks, Matt Easton here, scholagladiatoria, and I am in very sunny and hot West London. I'm in Gunnersbury Park, and for anybody who comes to SG1 in Ealing as our Tuesday night club, not Stargate, I know a lot of you think there's a comparison there, anybody who comes to that class, it's just down the road from there basically. And I'm here with Pedro. He's just off camera at the moment, but Pedro, come in, just wave, show your hair, show him with another human being, there we go. So, so we had a day off, as it were. It's incredibly hot by London standards anyway. So we're out in the park. Apologies for my shininess, it's very, very sweaty. But what I wanted to talk about relatively briefly was these. So these are Pedro's assembled small sword simulators. Pedro certified, okay? And the blades are Leon Paul épée blades, aren't they? Yeah. So Leon Paul épée blades, and they're made kind of like an angle iron, welded onto. That's quite an innovative design actually, and supposedly they're less likely to break and that kind of stuff. And they've stood up pretty well, haven't they? In our club, they don't get very bent. I've not seen any of them break so far, so they're good. So Leon Paul épée blades recommended, and then coupled with a foil dish guard. And grip, and then these, where's these knuckle bow from?
Zen Warrior Armory.
Zen Warrior Armory, okay, so shout out to Zen Warrior Armory for these kind of finger rings and knuckle bow combos. And the end result is something that you can use for a pretty good small sword simulator. Relatively budget, pretty easy to assemble. Pedro buys the parts and puts these together for other club members. But what I really wanted to say actually was, so I've been known in the past to kind of, not badmouth, but say some detrimental things about modern Olympic sport fencing. Now I want to clarify some things. So if someone comes to me and says, oh, you know, I don't live near a HEMA club, or I'm under the age of 16, or whatever is the required age of the local HEMA club, what do you recommend I do? Pretty much my main answer, assuming they want to do one of the weapons that I predominantly teach, I say to them, do sport fencing, okay? I absolutely think, and I did sport fencing at school and university, I absolutely think that, that modern fencing, Olympic fencing style is a fantastic thing to learn and teaches you lots of core skills which are transferable to a whole bunch of HEMA weapons, if HEMA's what you end up doing in the end. Even if it's spear or bayonet or something like that, but definitely if it's small sword, rapier, saber, even backsword, even to some degree things like longsword as well. So I think it's absolutely a great basis. It teaches you things about distance and timing and geometry. It teaches you to be athletic in a certain way, which is transferable to basically all martial arts. When we get people coming into Scholar or into HEMA in general, from different backgrounds, there are certain backgrounds which it's very clear give a greater advantage than others. There are some things which can actually be slightly detrimental because sometimes things need to be unlearned before you can then learn our way of doing it, as it were, and that can be true of some things in modern fencing. For example, in épée, épéists can be quite kamikaze because they're trying to get their first hit in within 1/25 of a second, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But overall, the people who come into HEMA from sport fencing backgrounds or from things like certain grappling arts like jiu-jitsu or judo, generally speaking, they bring more advantages than detriments to HEMA. Okay, they bring very strong transferable skills. So very clearly, if you want to do fiore, abrazare, or dagger defense, or using a dagger, or indeed longsword or poleaxe or spear, then if you have a background in grappling, that's going to be of some benefit to you. If you want to do military saber and you have a background in modern sport saber or épée or foil, then that's going to be an advantage to you as well. Now, where my criticism has lain with modern fencing is actually really in the rule set and the mindset, and those two things are connected. Now I have to say it's less of a problem with foil, I would say. I think foil, modern foil, because it has the priority or right-of-way rule, it does to a certain extent instill correct behaviours. Some people believe that épée is the closest modern sport weapon to historical fencing, and in one sense it is, because it's got a full body target. But there's a big problem with that. It's a full body target without any kind of priorities given to hit location. So for example, if I stab you in the toe half a second before you stab me in the face, I've won a point, I'm the winner, I'm the champion. Now clearly in a real kind of martial arts, martial mindset setting, that's a bad thing to train yourself to do, because as one of the first things you learn in HEMA is attacking low is always accompanied by a risk to your upper targets, your vital targets, and most people most of the time can survive a thrust through their lower leg or foot, but most people most of the time will be in quite a lot of trouble if they're stabbed in the chest, neck or head. So very clearly that's one of the problems with the rule set and the mindset for épée fencing. Conversely, you could say one of the problems with foil is that the right-of-way rule means that that can be abused, because people know that once they've commenced an attack, they're basically safe until the other person has parried their attack. Okay, so that can have artifacts, that can have false kind of messages it can train you into doing, or kind of bad behaviours that you learn through that as well. But equally in foil, you've got a limited target. Okay, so the legs are off target, the head's off target, so this means that you're not very good at defending the face, or less good at defending the face, and equally you don't ever defend the legs in foil because you don't need to. So that's a weakness as well. But overall, what you learn in modern fencing through timing and distance and tempo particularly, so how knowing when the right time to attack a person is, when there's recognizing an opening, and indeed the simple things like how to make good parries and engagements and portions of the blade, weak, medium and strong and things like this, and the feeling in the blade, and being able to move quickly and precisely. All of these things are hugely important and take a certain amount of time to learn to do well, and you can learn them excellently in modern fencing. So what I would finish off with saying is that and that's why I'm holding one of these. About, what was it, a couple of years ago now, we decided in scholagladiatoria to start dabbling in smallsword. And regular viewers of my channel will probably remember that a couple of years ago I acquired an antique smallsword and I started making videos talking about smallswords a bit. And at a similar time, Pedro got an interest in smallsword and foil, and within the club we got hold of a few foils and épées and smallsword simulators, and we started doing some of this material. I have to say, more based on 19th century foil rather than 18th century smallsword, although with a bit of 18th century smallsword mixed in. So often we will use the left hand for grabs and disarms and things like this. So we started doing that a couple of years ago, and without a shadow of a doubt it has been beneficial to our training overall, but specifically training for the sabre. So I do a little bit of foil, and the things that I have noticed have improved since I started doing a bit of foil some of the time were my lunges. My lunges became deeper and more committed. My blade engagements became better, my feeling of the blade, because a foil or an épée is very light and in some ways less forgiving, and when you're bound against someone else's blade, you've got to be much more sensitive in the hand to that bind, and so I feel that that has improved. My thrusting accuracy has improved, so I can stick the point more precisely where I want it to go when I see an opening. And hopefully I think it's reinforced my sense of tempo as well, and knowing about the correct timing of when is safe to attack, the correct moment of when to attack. Possibly also it's assisted some of my feints, some of my feint combos, and I would say that because with a weapon that's very light in the tip and that you can move around quite nimbly at the tip, it moves more quickly in essence, and so your brain has to be able to deal with quicker disengages and quicker parries and quicker recoveries back to guard as well. So it's training not just for the hand and the body, you know, things like the lunge or precision, but it's also training for the brain as well, because some things happen at a slightly faster speed with these more nimble thrusty weapons, and so you have to be able to think slightly quicker and also think about your quicker kind of combinations of feints and movements as well. Anyway, I hope that goes some way to redressing what may have been seen as my negative impression of sport fencing. It's not true at all. Modern fencing was very important to me starting out, and I absolutely recommend it to anybody. And even if you do have a HEMA club and you are doing HEMA regularly, maybe do a beginner's course in foil. Who knows? You might take something away from it, and I think you probably will. Certainly if you do one-handed weapons, I think you'll take something away from it. Anyway, I hope that's been somewhat useful, and I will see you soon for some more videos from the park. See you soon, folks. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We've got extra videos on Patreon, t-shirts on Spreadshirt, and I hope to see you for the next video.